This week at the agenda turned its focus to rising diagnoses of ADHD and examined the fallout from Ontario's full-day kindergarten program as well. The agenda's Week in Review begins, however, with political scandals at 3 levels of government. Okay, Ivor, if you had a chance to sit down with Rob Ford, what would you ask him?
Well, the things I would ask him are entirely distinct from, the answers he would give me if there would be any, any substance to them. I would ask the same things that every journalist in town is asking. With these 2 other questions we're talking about here today, we have the outlines of a story. We've been given some facts. There's blanks in the story, and we're trying to figure out, how to fill in these blanks. The difference with Rob Ford is that it's all blank. He is denying everything flatly and without any elaboration whatsoever. So we don't have even the basics of an agreed set of facts to go on here. So the basic questions in this case are, is any of this true? Does this video exist? Are you doing the things that they're saying you're doing in this video? Do you face addiction issues, which he has denied in the past? Did you say the things that are attributed to you, in this video? So those are the basics that need to be established. I think the bigger questions here is, what I would like to know from his perspective is, at what point is it incumbent upon a mayor to take responsibility and step back from his post to deal with issues like this?
Well, we're a week later, so apparently, in his view, not yet.
Yeah, and the answer could well be never. And it's worth noting that there is no impeachment mechanism for a mayor.
Well, we have one. It's called the next election.
Yes.
So that's what we wait for.
And that could be a long time for the city.
Doug Ford, his brother, who's also on city council, had what I think has widely been regarded as the worst damage control press conference ever done in the history of the country yesterday. And in the midst of...
Unless it was the Prime Minister's speech to caucus the other day. But
we can quibble. This may have been worse, Doug Ford's, in which he said, Rob Ford, my brother the mayor, has been the most targeted politician in the history of the country. People show up at his house, people show up in his backyard, media target him when he goes to Tim Hortons, his family has been targeted. Is that a fair comment?
No, it's and this is a point of some contention, I could say, in the media. Nobody ever showed up in his backyard, for one thing. This is one of these canards they keep trotting out time and time again. The Toronto Star, they were going to make this about the Toronto Star as soon as it happened. The Toronto Star has made itself into a useful foil for the Fords by being very clear in its editorial direction, but their reporting has been pretty unimpeachable, on this front. It was kind of classic Ford damage control. It played the victim card. It went full on the offensive and did not give any concessions towards what people might call observable reality. He made statements to the effect of, well, my brother has answered all the questions. He spoke in front of the media 3 times, when in fact, I believe the full extent of Rob Ford's first comment on it was, this is ridiculous.
And that was
interview.
It. Yeah.
And so it was as if you could feel the fabric of time and space warping around Doug Ford as he said these things, which just did not mesh with what the media in the room had experienced and seen.
How much, Richard, of the Senate expenditure malfeasance story is the delicious irony that there are 2 ex-journalists who would have loved this story themselves had they still been journalists rather than at the eye of the hurricane?
Well, they would have acted as journalists do tend to do in such circumstances, to be a little bit sanctimonious. We've become the sort of moral voice of the nation, and the nation is actually capable of making up its own decisions on many of these matters. I think we do, it's inevitable, it is human nature for us, journalists. We do tend to hype scandals. They are easy to write because they're dramatic, and provided you don't commit libel, you can get away with saying a lot. And second, the public wants to read about them. And in particular, the guessing by the public on the Senate one is huge. I mean, people are fascinated and have come up with all kinds of I've heard them, theories as to why Nigel Wright gave Duffy 90,000 and what he was going to get, or the government was going to get, or Harper was going to get in return. So we like them. They're a lot better than dealing with bankers going bankrupt and that kind of stuff. It's tough. That is hard work. These are much easier. That's why it was my first book.
Right. Got it. Jordan, I want to bring a psychologist's knowledge in at this point in the discussion, which is presumably there is some level of trust between the governed and those who govern. And that trust has been broken in few pretty high-profile occasions right now. From a psychological point of view, how does one go about repairing that trust if it in fact has been utterly devastated?
Well, the first thing you need is a clear account of the behavior. You need to know why it happened, and that has to be, hopefully it would be the truth, but it should also be believable. That would be good. And then the person has to take responsibility for their actions, which Nigel Wright may have already done. And then third, what you have to see is that there are policies put in place to help ensure that this sort of thing won't happen again. I mean, with the federal government scandal, you already see that to some degree, because it was an investigation by the government, in a sense, because they hired Deloitte, that revealed the problems to begin with. So in some ways, it's actually evidence that the system isn't functioning too badly, at least at the level of senatorial expenses.
Except that Mike Duffy didn't cooperate with the Deloitte investigation,
Right.
which made it somewhat problematic.
Right. Well, then it's an issue of Duffy himself, but not necessarily an indication that there's a systemic flaw in the system, which is one of the things I think that really needs to be concentrated on, because systemic flaws are a big problem. So anyways, clear accounting, responsibility, and some indication that that sort of thing is less likely to happen in the future. And that's, I think, about the best that you can expect in a functioning, complex system.
Okay, we saved the best for last. Allison, you ready to go?
Pressure.
Now, I appreciate the fact that you represent a nonpartisan organization and you don't want to get too deep in the weeds on this thing, but after the kind of last couple of weeks that we've had around here, how many true believers can there possibly be left in this country?
Well, not many. Sadly, some of the research we have done at Samara shows that Canadian satisfaction with democracy is at the lowest it's ever been since that question's been asked. So 54% of Canadians are currently report being satisfied with democracy. And
54% are satisfied?
Report being satisfied. So
I wonder what that's down from.
well, it's a
40 years ago.
10% drop in the last, 20% drop in the last 10 years. So it's a very significant drop. So why that is, there's a bunch of questions. But one of the biggest reasons is that Canadians actually are very democratic people. They report a lot of pride in being in a democracy, but the way they feel in their politics every day and the way they experience that democracy and see it practiced is much different than what their expectations. So that gap is sizable and growing, at least if you believe public opinion research on the subject.
You were right to raise the fact that two of the people under fire in Ottawa today are journalists. I just want to clarify they're former television journalists, and not print journalists or columnists. Number one. Number two, I think Richard reminds us of an important point. I spent about 11 years abroad for the Star, and I went from one corrupt country to another. When I came back to Canada in the midst of the Gomery inquiry, I didn't know what all the fuss was about. It was just a few $1 million here or there. So I may have a higher tolerance for scandal than most. But I have this theory, which I cannot completely prove, but I have a little bit of evidence, that Canadians sort of discount for scandal in the same way that people in the financial markets discount for low profit reports and profit warnings and so on. I think it takes a fair bit to truly shock Canadians, and more particularly to change their voting intentions. At a certain point, you reach a tipping point and people want to throw the bums out. That didn't happen, for example, in British Columbia most recently, where there was a fair bit of accumulated scandal about this, that, and the other thing, and they won re-election.
Or for McGuinty in 2011.
McGuinty had the e-health scandal on the books then. We've had the Orange scandal, which I think is a real scandal of personal enrichment by Chris Mazza. And yet that even doesn't have a tremendous amount of traction as a vote-determining issue in this province. One last thing, my little bit of evidence that I'm going to put forward, if anyone still believes polls. Forum had a poll in our paper a few weeks ago which showed that I think 61% of voters believed that the McGuinty government had misled them on the numbers, on the costs of cancelling those gas plants. In other words, they had lowballed the province. But a strong majority of Ontarians wanted the NDP to continue to prop up the government and pass the budget. A strong majority did not want the NDP to call an election. And if there were an election, a majority of Ontarians would vote for a Liberal government to be re-elected. So that's the discontinuity that you're talking about in terms of cynicism and public awareness.
Are people unrealistic? Are they too cynical? I think part of what you're seeing, part of the reason we're a successful society is that there's an ethic, there's a culture in this country that is, relative to other countries, not terribly tolerant of wrongdoing in high places. We don't just roll our eyes and say, well, that's that. We may not make every scandal the decisive issue in an election. That's probably wise as well. We have a sense of proportion, but we're probably a little bit more puritanical than other societies, and that's probably part of our success. 100 years ago, correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, 100 years ago, the ethic was more tolerant of, say, bribing judges. It would
everything.
It would be
It was a
unheard of
different
today.
world.
It would be unheard of today, which shows you that ethical standards can change for the better. We don't have to just tolerate things. We can upgrade our standards. And part of what may be going on is that, and I think certainly people in public life, some of them would say, is stuff that was allowed, that was okay, that was nodded at 40, 50 years ago, is no longer nodded at or winked at. And frankly, I think that's a good thing.
Okay, full day kindergarten was envisaged as a so-called seamless day with the board operating programs of optional before and after school care. We are now at the midway point of the program having been implemented. How's it going?
I'm delighted with the way it's going. Yes, we have more work to do, but I think two good measures are, number one, parents are flocking to the program when it's available, and number two, when we look at the early research on FDK, kids are benefiting. So parents are happy, kids are happy, I'm happy.
Okay, having said that, we did see in the statistics just there that if the idea of the board essentially having not control, but responsibility for all of this was the plan, that's not what's happening. 93% of this operation is being done by third-party operators.
Well, the interesting thing was, and my riding in Guelph was typical, is that when we first started to roll in full-day kindergarten, the child care sector and the parent sector said very strongly, you know, there's a lot of child care operators in the community that we already trust. The board said, you know, those operators often already have programs in the schools. We've got good working relation. We know they're high quality. And everybody said, they know a whole lot about childcare. The board doesn't know so much. Why can't we have third party?
Because that's not a seamless day then, necessarily.
Well, yes, it is, because you're not going to have one ECE being there.
Early childhood educator.
Sorry, I do lapse into edubabble. You're not going to have one early childhood educator being there from, say, 7 in the morning till 5 at night anyway. So there is going to be a change in the ECE. And for the child, what's really disruptive, I think, is if they need the before and or after. And they have to go from one place to school
Switch locations.
to another place. So from the child's point of view, and from the parent has to figure out how to move the kid, what really matters is somebody else coming into the same room, or do they just have to go down the hall to the child care that's already there? That's seamless. I mean, yes, there's a different face, but there was going to be a different face at some point during the day.
No, I get
anyway.
that, but seamless, my hunch is, to most parents means I don't have to pick up my child from one location, take him or her to another location. There's
And
still
that's what's happening when parents ask for it.
Parents want that?
No, when the avoidance of moving the child is happening when parents are asking for it. So as your data showed, there's about 62% of the schools where we now have the before and after care being operated. Often by third-party operators, but those are third-party operators who are fully licensed, who often have long-standing relationship with the board anyway.
Okay.
So the child doesn't have to be moved.
No, I get that, but that's not what was promised. What was promised was the Board of Education having responsibility for a full seamless day of activities for a child, the research of which shows that that's the best potential outcome for that child. That's not what's happening. That's what was promised.
What I'm saying is that when we really stopped and had a look at, do we need the board that isn't an experienced child care operator? Do we need to force the board to get into operating child care? Or when you've got a child care operator who you already know is high quality and who is often already working in a school setting doing before and after, you get an equally good outcome from having the third-party licensed operator provide the before and after program.
Andrea, to you first. What impact has the arrival of full-day kindergarten had on childcare in Ontario, in your view?
Well, childcare has been historically underfunded, and in fact, some of the impacts from full-day kindergarten have made that worse. But for this government, they've been in now for 10 years. And today you can say that parent fees are going up, ECEs are getting out, and quality in this province is at risk of going down. So it may not be quite as rosy as the minister said in
Never
her
mind, not
earlier
quite as
statements.
rosy. That's exactly the opposite of what she just said.
The problem with how we fund childcare, many years went by when childcare wasn't even in the budget. We've seen some good initiatives lately, but it's not enough. Parents are paying $10,000 to $15,000 a year per child. If you have 2 children, you can expect to pay anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 a year.
Are you saying since FDK things have gotten worse?
I'm saying the financial crisis has continued, and in fact, there are financial pressures on childcare centers from full-day kindergarten.
Seen it.
I would go back to the original vision, and the plan was to roll out full-day early learning and at the same time think about a different way of funding and structuring early childhood programs. I don't like to create a silo between childcare and FDK. For me, the early years encompasses all of that, including the parenting and family support programs. So in our mind, the recommendations that were established and accepted by the Premier at the time included not just the rollout of full-day kindergarten for 4 and 5-year-olds, but extended day programs that would be school board operated and a more integrated approach to children's services. So I would say that part A of that has happened. The extended day situation has been a little bit chaotic, although we have some really good examples, including Waterloo, and I'm glad that Mary Lou is here. And in terms of the childcare funding, I think that if we maintain the status quo around the design of both the funding and the delivery of services, then we'll continue to experience exactly the kind of chaos that we are experiencing. I think that there's a possibility here for a different model.
Okay, let me hear from Waterloo now, because from what I hear, what they intended and what you're doing is happening. Is that right?
We like to think so. It hasn't been without its challenges to get to that point. But yes, we are running a board-operated extended day program in the majority of our full-day kindergarten schools. It is a seamless day, as was envisioned by the vision that Pascal put forward, Best Futures in Mind. We have the ECEs, who are board employees, who start the day at 7 a.m. They move into the school day and work with the teacher during the day. A second one comes in later in the day and spells off, and the schools continue on till 6 p.m.
So that's the seamlessness of the whole thing.
All
in the same location.
All in the same location. And what some of the impacts that has generated for our community. And again, I think the important piece around this is going back to what it was originally envisioned to do. It was envisioned to create accessibility. We had a large number in our region alone. 84% of our families have 2 working parents. And there was only 38% of those parents able to access any kind of care at all. So going back to the original purpose of it all, part of it was to increase access. And we now have over 3,000 families who are accessing before and after school care in our school system. Those are spots that just didn't exist before.
So 3,000 more or total?
Total.
3,000 in total?
In total.
And how many, do you think the number of spaces is more now?
It's absolutely more now, because you see, with the before and after school program for 4 and 5-year-olds, we operate that in our classrooms. We don't have to have purpose-built childcare spaces because our classrooms meet the requirements for that to occur. So families are no longer on waiting lists. I mean, that is the death knell for most families when it comes to early learning. They're on these lengthy wait lists and they can't access the program. Well, we don't have that problem for our 4 and 5-year-olds. Our kids can get into those programs because they're offered in their neighborhood school. And that's very reassuring for our families.
Wendy, what's your read on this?
Well, our members are, and myself included in that, are seeing that the seamless day that the minister was talking about, and it appears that it's really working for you, and I think that is absolutely fabulous. Not so much working in our area.
Our area means what?
Well, I know about what's happening in Peel and in Simcoe and in the London area, in Toronto area, that the classroom sizes, if you were doing a seamless day, like I do a seamless day with a child care center, where a child comes in at 7, they're with the same teachers all day long, they have a 1 to 10 ratio, they're capped at 20. They sit down, have a full hot lunch with the teachers. They've got lots of TLC. They've got everything, all their needs being met. If they have children with special needs, that we have workers that come in from different agencies to...
What age kids are we talking here?
I'm just going to talk about FDK. So these are 4 and 5-year-olds that stay in a child care center for their kindergarten program as opposed to going to the school board.
Okay.
Some of our families are telling us that have moved out to the board that the classroom sizes are very, very large. There are 29 children in a classroom.
In the board?
In the board. Some of the schools that were built long ago don't quite meet that criteria, so they're a smaller classroom. They were maybe built for 20 children, but now they have 29 in them. There's also the, in our area, the children aren't in a seamless day like they are with you. So they're going to a program in the school first, then they're coming into the classroom, then they're having other caretakers through the lunch hour time, they're coming back into their classroom, then they're going to their after-school program. So that's not as seamless as it is with a child care setting.
Well, would you call these growing pains, or is this something more fundamental?
Well, I think it's probably growing pains. We'd like to think that.
Jennifer hasn't said anything yet. Jennifer gets a turn to speak. Go ahead, give us your read on this.
I was just going to say, I think the last 5 to 7 years in Ontario has kickstarted a really great conversation about childcare from that 0, infancy to 12 continuum that we haven't had in a very long time. And we've been able to concentrate on some really fascinating successes out of the 4 and 5-year-old full-day kindergarten model. When Mary Lou was talking about the experience in their day, for the children in our care, they are in the same kindergarten classroom in the extended day model with the, so they're not experiencing a change in location. And so it is very much, to your point earlier, about keeping within the spirit and vision of that continuum of care throughout the day. It's a different provider who's offering that service, but it is still providing an incredible value add to families, increasing access and right across this province.
When did you know you had ADHD?
I got the diagnosis around the year 2000. That was my Y2K disaster, but it was a relief. It was like, everything makes sense. And so I was able to go, this is why I've written 700 episodes of radio and television skit comedy and finished 1 screenplay. And I took all the other screenplays and went, not gonna do those. What happened then was I got such resistance from people around me. What are you talking about? You're successful, you're on national television, you don't have ADHD. It's like, Richard Branson owns an airline, he's got ADHD. So I was so dismissed and kind of humiliated and angry. It stewed, and eventually with a friend of mine, Patrick McKenna, who plays Harold on the Red Green Show, co-star, he decided, or I talked to him very quickly, because he's impulsive, what the heck, into doing a documentary about him actually getting diagnosed. His wife, who's not ADHD, was alarmed and then went along with it. And it's been seen by, 5 or 6 million people, and emails come in all the time saying, you just saved my life. My child is starting to have a dream they could have a life.
Well, let me pick up on that, because he was an adult when he got diagnosed, as were you.
Yeah, I was 47.
I thought this was the kind of thing that you got diagnosed when you were a kid. Not in your case, though.
No, and in fact, for adults, mine was the classic. Your kid's diagnosed, your kid's suddenly gifted, bright, suddenly struggling. They do analysis, a testing, they suggest ADHD. I'm a dad, I'm responsible, let me see the list. What's wrong with this? This is, and then everything makes sense. Suddenly you realize why you're really good at starting stuff, not finishing, why you have so much on the go, why you tune out. And you start to, as I start to learn, especially about the DRD 4.7, the first gene that was identified, thanks to some work partly done here at University of Toronto, but mostly University of California, Irvine, that was the first gene that was identified, suspect gene. And then I went, and I could look at my dad, I looked at my grandfather who was on the vaudeville stage. My dad stood, wrestled his change and keys as he watched TV, change channels, go upstairs, read a book, come back.
The light went on.
Yeah, and he's in sales. It was the perfect job. He's in insurance, talking to people all day long. Perfect job. And I'm in the perfect job. So when you find the right conditions, you can soar. But if you don't know what's going on and you're tuning out when your own child is pouring their heart out from you, you don't think, I wonder if I'm low on norepinephrine and dopamine. You think, I'm a bad father. So the relief, the anger, the why didn't I know sooner, it's a huge toxic mix. We're dealing with on our website on Totally ADD, people who've got the diagnosis in their 70s. They get the diagnosis, they start treatment, Suddenly, 6 months later, the house is clean, all the clutter's gone, they're back finishing courses, the kids are coming over because they can stand being around, they can listen, they don't interrupt, and then they go, oh my God.
Life-changing.
Yeah, but what if I'd known sooner? I wouldn't have gone through 3 marriages and 4 bankruptcies, and it's heartbreaking.
Just for the record, you're not referring to yourself when you say all those
I've
things.
been through 1 divorce, and my finances are still a mess. I have a wife who does miracles for me, and it's the perfect match.
Well, let's find out from David Teplin then why this thing seems to be so difficult to diagnose. Here's Rick getting a diagnosis well into his 40s. How come?
Well, there are a number of reasons. First off, they've done some studies suggesting that the average adult with ADHD takes about 12 and a half years to actually get the diagnosis, which means one of a few things. Either they've been misdiagnosed or the person assessing them hasn't even looked for it in the first place. The second thing, and again I'm talking as an adult clinical psychologist, is that many things can mimic ADHD, including other psychiatric disorders, medical conditions. And also, even if the person should have adult ADHD, the rule rather than the exception is that if you've got ADHD, you have about a 75% chance or even more of having one or more comorbid or coexisting disorders. So it's very important that when you do an assessment that it needs to be comprehensive and that you need a lot of data points, as it were, to collect the data in terms of it being lifelong and a lifespan disorder, and also in terms of how it plays out, because ADHD is not, we're coming to understand that ADHD in fact is not one simple diagnostic term. And probably in time I wouldn't be surprised that we start to see ADHD like we did schizophrenia or mood disorders, in which they're different.
It's a panoply of things.
That's right, it's like a spectrum disorder, and so we might really talk of it as the ADHDs rather than ADHD.
I see. Okay, Ravinder Sidhu, you're also a clinical psychologist. I wonder if you could sort of add to what we just heard about whether you find it also difficult to diagnose right out the gate.
It is, and I think there are unique challenges to diagnosing it in children and diagnosing it in adults.
You do both?
Both, yes. So we do get, like Rick said, oftentimes there'll be adults who come in and they end up coming to us because their child is coming in because the teacher thought that they may have ADHD. So the child goes through an assessment, and then we go and have the feedback, and you're talking to the parent, and then it just kind of clicks in like, I was like that as a kid. I still have problems like with all these issues, and they may not have even picked it up on their child because they think that that's normal. This is how I was. He's just taking after me, and then they start to wonder, well, maybe I have ADHD too. And they've gotten through without ever getting diagnosed.
So is this a condition that more often than not is inherited from a parent?
There is like a big heritability component with it. So like with everything, there's an interaction between the genes and the environment, but there is a large heritability component. So oftentimes when you do see children, chances are that maybe one of the parents might also have it as well, which leads to a whole bunch of other challenges. But with children, just like how Dr. Teplin said, like there are so many conditions that mimic the same symptoms of ADHD, and it's also comorbid with so many different things that you really need to talk to people in multiple contexts in the child's life. So you need to get some information from school staff, from parents. Sometimes if you have the luxury, maybe even somebody who's seen the child outside of home and school somewhere else, another family member who might know them very well.
So this is very intensive, and therefore...
And see the child as well, yeah. So oftentimes, most of the assessments that I end up doing, I'll be called in for a psychoeducational assessment, for example, because the child's having learning problems. So I actually do, luckily, get to spend an entire day with this kid because we're testing for 6 to 8 hours. And so I get to see the child over the course of a school day, like starting from 9 o'clock, how do they do till 3? And the observations become really important, right? Because if in 6 hours I don't see anything in this child showing that there's any attention problems and issues, I might start to get suspicious. But chances are usually you do see some behavioral stuff, and you can kind of supplement that with school records and with all kinds of information, but that's not always possible to have such comprehensive.
Well, the large numbers of these diagnoses have got some people scratching their heads, and let me go to you on this one, Russell Shacker, because a new study, as you know, by the Centers for Disease Control in the U.S. indicates nearly 1 in 5 high school age boys in the United States have received a medical diagnosis of ADHD at some point in their lives, and it's got people asking questions whether or not, contrary to Rick's background, where it was never diagnosed, are we overcompensating and overdiagnosing now? What's your view?
Well, I think we're probably overdiagnosing ADHD under some circumstances. We're probably underdiagnosing it under other circumstances, and certainly misdiagnosing it under many circumstances. The study from the Center for Disease Control, it was really just a study based on, the data is based on inquiring about whether or not a person had a diagnosis, received a diagnosis. It's not clear from that study where they got the diagnosis, how valid the diagnosis was, and I dare say there are probably many people who have been told at various times by various people that they have ADHD. Exactly how that...
For sure. In fact, long before I was diagnosed, there's an adventure with Bill, the thing I did on the Red Green Show. There's an adventure with Bill where I get knocked down, I get up, I try again, I mess up, I do something stupid again and again, and just keep going forward optimistically. And Red in the narration says, well, it looks like Bill's having one of his ADD moments. And, you know, I have family members, I won't say who, but they've said to me, yeah, I probably am too. And they're very successful people. So it is a spectrum. And the analogy I like to use is that it's height. We all have height, right? The question is how much. Mm-hmm. And so you're a tall guy. But if I say to you, is 6'2" tall, you'd say, no, probably not. Somebody else might say, my wife would say, yeah, 6'2" is tall. If I say 6'8" is tall, you're going to agree that's tall, right? Yes. So we're all going to agree 6'8" is tall. So if you're in the top, for adults, it's 4%. If you're in that top 4% in terms of height, you're 6'5" or up. So there's nothing wrong with being 7 feet tall. But if you don't know you're 7 feet tall and you go through life hitting your head on everything, smacking doors, you go out in grade 3 to play with the other kids, to play leapfrog, and they all get hurt. Now, aggression hurt every other child. Never invited to a birthday party. Mm-hmm. And ADHD kids are not popular. They don't have a lot of friends. They're struggling. This whole myth of, oh, these are creative, artistic. No. These are kids that nobody invites for sleepovers.
I want to tell Dr. Albert Wong that, yes, you do get to speak on this program. and you will...
Just enjoying the discussion.
You're enjoying the discussion, but we want to put you to work as well. And I actually want to get you to react to something that I'm going to read right now, because there's a blog written by the director of the National Institute of Mental Health, Thomas Insel, talking about the new edition of the DSM-5. This is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. This is the Bible for the people in the psychiatric world. And here's what he wrote. Control room, if you would. Let's bring this up. Unlike our definitions of ischemic heart disease, lymphoma, or AIDS, the DSM diagnoses are based on a consensus about clusters of clinical symptoms, not any objective laboratory measure. In the rest of medicine, this would be equivalent to creating diagnostic systems based on the nature of chest pain or the quality of fever. Indeed, symptom-based diagnosis, once common in other areas of medicine, has been largely replaced in the past half-century as we have understood that symptoms alone rarely indicate the best choice of treatment. Which raises a bunch of questions. Should we even think of ADHD as an illness or a disease or a condition or what? Help us on that.
Yeah, I agree generally with Tom Insel's ideas. The counterpoint to his ideas is that we do need a language to speak about what these behavioral syndromes are clinically so that we can have a common definition. So that's a semantic issue. And so the issue of whether it's being over and under diagnosed is in some ways, I don't think, the real question. Because it depends on how you set the criteria, and these criteria do change over time, and they can be applied differently in different contexts. So I think the more important point is what Dr. Insel said, which is that we in psychiatry look at clusters of symptoms or behaviors or just things that people do or the way that they act, and we give it a label, and we give them a diagnosis. But that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the way the brain works or if the brain isn't working. Of course, there are many control points in the nervous system for all kinds of behaviors. And we've picked out of these clusters of behaviors that people have certain ones that we call diagnoses. But that changes, and that is something that's driven by committees. It's not necessarily anchored in neurobiology, and I think that's part of the issue. One of the examples that Tom Insel makes in that blog is that if we were to approach heart disease, say 200 years ago, in the same way as we are approaching diagnoses in psychiatry, we might look at people with chest pain, and if we're looking for a good measure of whether they're actually having a heart attack or not, we might try EKGs. The problem is that most people with chest pain, fortunately, aren't having a heart attack. So the problem we have in psychiatry is we look at people who have a bunch of behaviors that we can very reliably diagnose as having a certain syndrome. And then when we look to see if there's something that we can measure, something biochemical or a brain imaging test or a gene variant or something, and we see that a certain proportion of those people who present with that behavioral syndrome don't have that biological abnormality, then we say that abnormality is not very good for diagnosing the syndrome. So in other areas of medicine, we use the biological marker, that as the anchor for the diagnosis. In psychiatry, we use the syndrome as the anchor, and this leads to some sort of circular reasoning, and that's part of the problem, I think.
And that is the Agenda's Week in Review. You can see all of those programs in their entirety if you want. They're on our website, theagenda.tvo.org, on our iTunes channel, and on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/theagenda.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.